Hi guys, I'm back again with some more stories for you today. Let's go to the first one, about OP's ex-wife's husband, who she had an affair with and left OP for. Well, he tried to poison OP's daughter against OP and become the #1 father figure for her. Well, it didn't turn out as he planned. Listen to the story to find out why, and of course, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I have one daughter, Rosie, 25 female. Her mother and I divorced when she was 2, after I learned she was having an affair with John. John claimed he was Rosie's biological father, so a DNA test was done. I'm her bio father. I don't think it surprised many since Rosie looks a lot like me. My ex and John married once the divorce was finalized, and John became the biggest thorn in my side. He has always bragged about how I'm not Rosie's only dad, and how she would grow up with both of us. He'd taunt me with things like, "She'll like me more one day. You're just one of her dads now. You'll lose them both to me someday," and things of that nature. My ex wanted me out of the picture, so allowed this as she thought I would give up. But I love my daughter, and despite my hatred for them both, I was calm and civil when my daughter was present, and watched my words even when she wasn't. John had been married when he and my ex started their affair. During the divorce, he learned both the kids involved were not his. He never saw them again. John and my ex never had any children together either, so he became determined to take over as Rosie's dad. John asked to adopt Rosie 6 different times while she was young, and she told me about it every time. He and ex attempted to change her last name to theirs, and were denied by the judge. He attempted to get my daughter to follow in his shoes to become an accountant. When Rosie was 14, I was injured significantly and ended up in the hospital for several months and spent several more in rehab recovering. John took great pleasure in being there while I was not. He often painted it like I was some deadbeat. Rosie was never John's biggest fan, but that was the year he truly poisoned their relationship. She decided she wanted to join my business when she finished high school. I set her up as an apprentice so she could learn from my team. It has been amazing. Now Rosie's engaged, and she asked me to walk her and her fiancé Seb down the aisle and to dance with both of them. Seb does not have parents, and he and I have been close since Rosie met him 6 years ago. I was honored to be asked to do this for both of them. John was enraged when he heard about this. He approached me while I was grabbing groceries and told me her fiancé can go duck himself, but he's Rosie's dad, and he should be dancing with her and walking her down the aisle. I was like, you know what, duck it, and gloated about the fact she asked me over him. I told him Rosie told him exactly what he deserved. Nothing. He said I should appreciate what he has done for Rosie more, but I gloated more. My ex and John both said I was an a-hole. They said I should not be so petty. My sister suggested, while not wrong overall, that maybe it would make Rosie's life harder with her mom and John. That is what gave me pause. Am I the a-hole? Personally, I don't understand what they want from OP. OP's daughter made this decision, so what does OP have to do with it? It's her choice and her wish. Everyone has a breaking point, and he pushed OP to his. However, it sounds like Rosie is fully aware of his games, and that keeps pushing her away even further. Looks like he failed to poison her mind against OP. She's a smart woman. And now let's see if the community agrees with me. Greek American Dom says, not the a-hole. In general, gloating is an a-hole move, but John brought all of this on himself. He has been working to turn Rosie against you from the get-go. Piece of advice. Going forward, handle this issue with grace. I'm not advocating for the high road. I'm actually advocating for even deeper revenge. The more grace you show, the better life you live, the greater relationship you have with Rosie and your future grandchildren, the more it will piss him off. Strict Lion 1498 says, I don't think you're the a-hole. Duck that guy. Your daughter made her decision. Johnny Boy and your ex need to respect that. Sounds like they can dish it out, but they can't take it. But remember, you're going to have to spend the wedding day with them. It may be a good idea to try to keep the peace from here out, though, for your daughter's sake. Leah and I have been best friends since high school. We never dated or hooked up. She has a 12-year-old daughter, Ashley. Leah and her husband got divorced when Ash was 2 months old. Leah was actually married to one of our mutual friends. He was a great guy. She cheated on him, and Ashley turned out to be the affair partner's daughter. So he left her. And she got almost nothing in the divorce. So back then, I let her live in a place I owned. She still lives there. I don't condone the cheating or sympathize with her, but I did what I did for her daughter. My daughter and Ashley go to the same school, and they're very close. So whenever I take my daughter out somewhere, Ash comes too. We have them over at weekends, and I'm really fond of her. Now, my wife doesn't like the interaction. She thinks Leah is mooching off of us because I don't charge her any rent. Leah is a waitress, and she doesn't make much. She can never afford the place. I own my family business, and I can say that we were affluent. I think it's a good gesture. Also, she's my friend. I can do that for her. But recently at a family dinner, Ashley just told me that she wished I was her dad. That pissed off my wife, and I'm unable to deal with the issues at home. I feel like my marriage is falling apart, and I can't afford that. I love my wife. So I stopped visiting her and contacting her. My sister and my mother found out about this, and they think I'm being selfish and immature, and I have a responsibility towards Ashley. I told them that I no longer intend to contact her, and my wife wants them out of the property. They think I'm going overboard and submitting to the wishes of my controlling wife. Am I the a-hole here? 1. OP's wife is not wrong that Leah is mooching off of OP. OP has allowed her to live rent-free for how long now? 12 years? That is an insanely long amount of time. And OP's wife is right that Leah is taking advantage of OP's kindness. She's had plenty of time to get on her feet and find a job that provides for her and her child. 2. It is entirely understandable that Ashley wishes OP was her dad. She knows that OP takes care of her and her mom, and that OP provides their housing. She hangs out with OP's family a lot. She sees OP being an involved dad with his own daughter, and she wishes she had that too. I don't think that OP's wife should be pissed at Ashley. She's just a kid. 3. OP's sister and mom are 100% wrong. OP does not have a responsibility to Ashley, beyond that of the supportive family friend. However, OP willingly blurred the lines between family friend and father figure, despite knowing that it made his wife uncomfortable. OP's first responsibility is to his wife and child. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Alex Murphy says, "Yeah, it would be you're the a-hole if you punish a 12-year-old for wanting a father figure and letting your wife's insecurities dictate your charitability. What does Ashley looking up to you mean to your wife? This might be too far, but if anything, I feel your wife should be looking at you with pure admiration. You're being incredibly kind to someone whose life would be truly worse without you. Your wife is just jealous that it's to another woman." Just Some Guy in Bed says, "Everyone sucks here. I'm sure your wife is far more upset about this lady living rent-free on your property for 12 years and her child being an ever-present part of your life than she is about the child saying she wished you were her dad. I think making it all about that issue makes her an a-hole because it's perfectly natural for Ashley to feel that way about the only permanent male figure in her life. I think you are kind of an a-hole because it sounds like you've just hand-waved your wife's concerns for over a decade, and you are now dealing with the fallout of that." Viking 1865 says, "Your friend has been mooching for over a decade. Waitresses all over the country manage to pay rent. You're not even charging her below market rent? A decade of rent from the property is what, $90,000? $120,000? Your money is for your wife and your children. It's one thing to spot a friend for a month or two of rent. You've now been paying her rent for 130 months. I'm 26, currently pregnant with my first child, girl. I'm due the start of September. My husband is 28 and has a son, 6, from another relationship. My family has a tradition with names. Me, my brother, and both my parents all have names that start with V. It was just a cutesy idea my parents came up with when having kids. My husband's name also happens to start with V, although he goes by his middle name instead, cause his first name doesn't have a typical English pronunciation. I want to give our daughter a V name as well to continue the tradition. Half of the names on my baby name list starts with a V. My husband's family doesn't have any family names or anything, so he was agreeable to this. But my mother-in-law is very against this. She thinks my stepson will be left out, and that I'm purposefully excluding him from the family somehow. I think it's silly, but her constant nagging has my husband second-guessing our daughter's name now. Even though her nursery is done, it has her initials on the wall, and we have some baby clothes with her name embroidered on them, gifts from my parents. My husband asked if I wanted to make her first name her middle name and choose something else, just in case his son is upset by this tradition, or if we could use a nickname or something. I told my husband his son is 6 years old and doesn't care about that at all. He would only feel bad if the adults made a big deal of it. I'm convinced my mother-in-law is trying to make us fight, as she's always had a problem with me. When I brought this up to my husband, he said that's not the case. She's just concerned about her grandson, which to me is bull. According to his family, I'm just being a hormonal pregnant woman that refuses to compromise. But I don't want to bend to my mother-in-law's demands, which make no sense. My stepson hasn't said anything about the name since he's 6 and is looking forward to being a big brother. I am afraid his grandmother may put this exclusion idea in his head. Am I the a-hole? P.S. Yes, I know it's a bad idea to tell people the baby's name before they are born. I regret it, but what's done is done. I don't think OP is in the wrong here. It's her family tradition, and I highly doubt the 6-year-old will think anything of it. In fact, if it becomes a huge deal to him, OP could probably change it around and tell him he's unique. At the end of the day, it's simply just a name, and mother-in-law's being ridiculous by harping on it, as is OP's husband, by trying to not rock the boat, but not backing up OP at the same time. And now let's hear the community's opinion. ALS Big Deal says, not the a-hole. If your stepson feels left out, just remind him that his mom and dad picked a very special name for him. You could always come up with a nickname for him that starts with V. Oh dear, it's Richard III says. So it would be like Kim, Chloe, Courtney, Kylie, Kendall, and Rob. Miley30 says, no idea if mother-in-law is a difficult person in general, but on this issue, she does have a point. If your stepson is going to be the only person at certain family events who doesn't have a name starting with a V, that definitely will make him feel like the oddball, and could make him feel unwelcome or like an outsider. I'll admit I could be biased on this one, since I find the idea of naming everyone with the same starting letter cringe. Sorry. But it does seem like doing this would be potentially hurtful to your stepson. No a-hole, but your stepson potentially being hurt by this is something to strongly consider when you make your final choice. My husband, 37, and I, 37, have been married for 10 years. Early on in our marriage, we separated and moved on to other people. To cut a long story short, I got pregnant by someone else, and unbeknownst to me, my husband allegedly got someone pregnant too. Despite having another man's baby, whom I was casually dating, I reconciled with my husband after being single for 2 years. He knows and loves her. Fast forward 3 months after I gave birth to my child, I received a Facebook message from the girl my husband was dating, informing me that she also had a baby, and she was asking for certain things. I asked her about my husband's response, but she never replied. 2 years later, she messaged me again, inquiring about shoes and Christmas, but I chose not to respond. Now, 4 years later, she has contacted me once more, which I ignored, and she went as far as messaging my mother and one of my aunts. She also tagged me in a post and made nasty comments about me, as if I had wronged her in some way. I'm not sure what changed in 4 years, but why is she reaching out to me now? She seemed to believe that I have control over my husband's actions, but I can only offer him advice. I told him he should find out if the child is his and provide support if it is. Not everyone is like me. I'll take care of my own, with or without him, and while I understand it's difficult, I refuse to give my money to something I had no part in. I didn't enjoy any of those 5 minutes. So, am I the a-hole? By the way, I have 4 kids totaled, and before I got back with my husband, I asked for a divorce multiple times. He never mentioned her and just said we can work things out. MD Thomas says, it's not your child. She has no reason to message you. Like you said, if she can prove the child is his, she should take him to court for child support. Not the a-hole, although your husband is if he isn't providing support for a child who is his. RB1327 says, I can only offer advice for him. I told him he should find out if the child is his and provide support if it is. Everyone sucks here. Everybody sucks here. The other woman needs to be reaching out to your husband, through the courts as needed, not to you. Your husband should be dealing with the consequences of his unprotected S. Whether he knew at the time or not, you were aware 3 months after the other child's birth, and that's when he should have verified paternity. You clearly are taking this I can only offer advice approach because it benefits you and your own children if no money passes from your household to the other mother. And you give 0 ducks about the fact that you are married to a possible deadbeat. Sarcastic Pedant says, not the a-hole. On social media, you should respond to any post tagging you or your family that you are not the child's mother. She is. And if she needs something, she's asking the wrong person in the wrong place. You should also tell your husband to speak to this woman and set her straight. He should ensure she doesn't come to you again. I bet he isn't on the birth certificate, and he doesn't pay child support. Is that because she never asked? I suspect that she isn't certain that he is the dad, but it may be worth a paternity test to be sure, because she will probably tell her child that he is. My 17 female aunt, 49 female, is pregnant with her second child. Yes, I typed that right. She is 49. She did IVF. Yes, this is another story about her. I'm going through all the college application stuff right now, and over a weekly Zoom call, my aunt started asking me and my mom some questions about all the paperwork and crap we've had to do for me. My mom answered some of her questions, but realizing how confusing all this is. Seriously, FAFSA and CSS are so complicated. My aunt laughed and said it didn't matter because all of this would probably be different in 16 years when she has to do it for her kids. She then continued and went, OP will be in her 30s by the time kid's name goes to college. It's good she'll be all set up so they don't have to worry about us. I have to admit, I couldn't let that slide, but in my pure confusion, I asked her what she meant, and God, I wish I didn't. She explained that because she didn't want her kids to worry about them instead of college, it's good that I'll be a full adult with a career by then, so I can take that role. Now, this woman has been a witch to me in the very recent past, and I know that at this point, I need to be the bigger person. So here's where I'm probably the a-hole. Going against my mom's pleading face, I scoffed, raised my eyebrows, and went, yeah, I'll make sure to put you in one of the good nursing homes. I was very quickly ushered out of the room, and I could hear the ensuing fight from downstairs. My aunt and her husband are pissed at me and claim that I don't care about my cousins at all, that I don't care about my family, and that I could have just shut my mouth. To be honest, I can see the latter part of their point. She's pregnant, she's raising a small child, and maybe I should have just shut my mouth. So, am I the a-hole? Jenny Islander says, so wait, is she saying that you, her niece, are her retirement policy? No, you have to shut that down. Seriously, not the a-hole. Tell them, early, often, and with witnesses, that you are not responsible for supporting the decisions that two grown adults made when you were still a child. Frandium says, not the a-hole. Your aunt's choice to have children late in life. Not your job to raise them or manage their college apps. Maybe she will stop with the snarks and assumptions if she knows she'll get called out. Smitten Kitten Mitten says, not the a-hole, but I wonder what you are culturally, because unless you really need to respect your elders, I don't see how your snarky comment was so egregious that you needed to be ushered out of the room and a fight ensued between presumably your parents and them.